Here I go, here I go, here I go. Yeah, here I go, here I go, here I go.
Before we get into today's episode of the pod, you guys have to subscribe because I'm looking at you and you're not subscribed to the channel yet. And you have to hit the notification bell because you're not going to know when I post if you don't have notifications when I post. Make sure to like the video, you guys, so I know you guys are enjoying these episodes. Make sure to follow my social medias. I will pop them on the screen so you can stay up to date with everything to do with this podcast. And then don't forget to check out the Spotify version. The link will be in the description for that as well. Finally, I am a sports writer, so make sure to check out the take.sport.blog so you can read the best sports articles ever. You will not regret clicking that link, so make sure to click that link below. But let's go ahead and get into today's pod, you guys. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Take Podcast here. I am, of course, your host, Jackson Burleson, and in today's episode, we're going to be breaking down the West and Eastern Conference Finals. But before we get into that, I really want to talk about Victor Wembanyama. I did write an article about him and how he will impact the game. He's going to change the game. I mean, he's obviously a generational talent, but a guy that is 7'2", maybe taller than that, coming into the game, being able to shoot, handle the ball, that's never been seen before. But I think, and I said this in my article too, what makes this guy a generational talent is his defense. If Victor Wembanyama can be a dominant defensive presence throughout his entire career, I don't see any reason why he can't be a top 5 player of all time when he is done playing. Now, I don't know how he's going to do health-wise throughout his career, because you look at guys like LeBron. LeBron has stayed healthy throughout his entire career. He has never really had any major injuries that have held him out for huge, significant amounts of time. But for Wembanyama, he reminds me a lot of like Chet Holmgren. He's got the same build. Is he as durable? Because Chet Holmgren got hurt. He broke his foot, and it's going to be very hard for him to recover, I think. I think Chet Holmgren will be a bust just because I don't think he'll be able to stay healthy. But Victor Wembanyama, his health is going to really play a huge factor into if this guy reaches the ceiling that everyone is putting this guy up. I mean, his ceiling is sky high. I mean, it's never ending. So there's a lot of pressure on him, obviously, but I think he knows exactly what he needs to do when he gets into the NBA. He just needs to dominate, just show his offensive skill set, showcase that defense, that wingspan, and I think he'll be perfectly fine. But go check out that article. I will put the link in the description for that article. The draft lottery is tonight as I am recording this. So whoever does win the draft lottery, we'll see how that impacts them, but it does not matter what team Victor Wembanyama goes to. Whichever team Victor Wembanyama goes to is going to be a playoff team automatically. But let's go ahead and get into, first of all, the Eastern Conference Finals with my Miami Heat. They're going to be taking on the Boston Celtics for the second year in a row in the conference finals. To kind of look at this matchup, obviously Jason Tatum is going to be a huge factor. But the question marks about Jason Tatum. Can Jason Tatum stay consistent throughout an entire series? We've seen Jason Tatum up and down kind of games in the last couple series, and that's going to be a huge factor. If he can just stay consistent, the Celtics will be in the finals, but history tells me that Jason Tatum will not be consistent, and the Miami Heat are going to win 3 games. I see the Heat taking the Boston Celtics to 7 games, but I think the Celtics are just too deep of a team. They just have too many weapons. They're too long. I don't know if Miami's going to be able to handle their size, and that's why we lost last year. And we don't have Tyler Hero at this very moment. But if we have Tyler Hero back, that is going to be a very different series, and the Heat could win with Tyler Hero. So without Tyler Hero, the Celtics will win this series. But if the Heat get back Tyler Hero in a like game 3 situation, I could see the Heat very well winning this series. And the Heat have to get one game on the road in Boston. They either have to get game 1 or game 2. They have to get one of those 2 games for Miami to even have a chance. And Jimmy Butler has to play the way he played in the Milwaukee Bucks series. He's got to be that dominant. He's got to be better than Jason Tatum in this series if the Miami Heat want to make it to the finals. That is exactly what's going to happen. But there's a lot of other guys that are going to be making big impacts on this series. I think Max Strus and Kyle Lowry are going to have huge roles in this series, especially Kyle Lowry, because Kyle Lowry is really big in the fourth quarter. I think Kyle Lowry down the stretch in the fourth quarter is going to be critical because he can get you a bucket whenever he wants. He's got experience in these types of games. He knows how to get it done in crunch time. So I think getting the ball in Kyle Lowry's hands at the end of games and Jimmy Butler at the end of games, those 2 guys are going to be our 2 closers. But Bam Adebayo, he's got to show that he can score the basketball against Robert Williams and Al Horford. If he can't score the basketball against those 2, the Miami Heat are in deep, deep trouble. We're not going to be able to do near anything because last year Bam struggled against Robert Williams. Robert Williams is a elite defender, and so is Al Horford. Al Horford, he really impressed me with the way he guarded Joel Embiid this past series. I mean, he literally held Joel Embiid to 1 rebound in the first half of Game 7 and only allowed him to have 4 rebounds. The MVP we're talking about here. The best, not the best center in the league. I almost put Jokic over that, but Jokic is the best center in the league. But Joel Embiid, he just fell asleep. There were a lot of times on defense with Horford where Horford was doing a back cut and Joel Embiid just didn't see him. That was a big disappointment. And Doc Rivers is out as head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, where does Doc Rivers go from here? Will he still be an NBA coach next year? That is going to be a big question mark because I don't want Doc Rivers to go to the Phoenix Suns and then Monty Williams go to the Philadelphia 76ers. That just doesn't make sense. I mean, Doc Rivers has proven the last 2 teams with the Clippers, he can't win with superstars. With the 76ers, he can't win with superstars. But at the end of the day, this Game 7 loss, this series loss against the Celtics, I do not think it's Doc Rivers' fault. I think it's 100% Joel Embiid and James Harden's fault. I think Doc Rivers should have stayed head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers because at the end of the day, the X's and O's can take you only so far. I mean, you have to have your superstars show up and perform. And Joel Embiid and James Harden did not do that in Game 6 and in Game 7. They did not. They would just disappear. And you can't have that from 2 guys who have 2 MVP trophies. I mean, you cannot fall asleep. Like, superstars have to show up in the playoffs. And James Harden and Joel Embiid have time and time again showed that they are not playoff-worthy players. They always shrink when it comes to playoff time, which is why the Sixers need to trade James Harden, and they need to get a good, solid wing. They need to get rid of Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris, he's a great player, but he just doesn't fit well with this Philadelphia team. He just doesn't. I mean, they want to play fast. I think, in my opinion, trade James Harden. Then you go and trade Tobias Harris. And then you go and give Maxey the second option on this Philadelphia team and see what happens. Get younger, get draft picks for this upcoming draft because this draft is going to be very big for a lot of teams. This is going to be one of the best draft classes in recent memory, outside of Wembanyama. I mean, Brandon Miller is the second overall pick. He is a stud. I mean, there's so many other players deeper in this draft as well that are going to make a very big impact on any team they go to. It's going to be very interesting. But the Philadelphia 76ers have to get younger. Now, I know they're in win-now mode, but getting younger will help them. Trust me. You still have veterans like P.J. Tucker, Niang. I mean, you still have a lot of other guys that have experience in the playoffs. So I think that should be the Sixers' plan. I think they're going to regret firing Doc Rivers. I think that was the wrong call there. And normally, I would agree with a head coaching firing, but this one I really didn't agree with. But let's go ahead and jump to the Western Conference Finals. The Western Conference Finals, this is going to be the best series of the entire postseason, including the NBA Finals. I'll say that right now. Jokic versus Anthony Davis. That is what this series is going to come down to. Who wins that matchup is going to determine who wins this series. Because Anthony Davis has to be the best player on the floor, and he has to be a big defensive presence down low. Because Jokic is a very smart player. I mean, this is a rematch from the 2020 bubble. And this Nuggets team is a very different team from then. Because Jokic was not a two-time MVP then. And they also didn't have Aaron Gordon, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Michael Porter wasn't really developed yet. He was kind of still battling with injuries. Jamal Murray, we'll see how Jamal Murray is, because Jamal Murray is not the same player. He did tear his ACL. He's not as athletic. It's going to be very interesting to see who wins that D'Angelo Russell and Jamal Murray matchup. That is also going to be a very big matchup. And I think D'Angelo Russell needs to play very well in this series for the Lakers to have a chance against this Nuggets team, because the Nuggets are very good defensively. I think the way the Nuggets move the ball around, they have a lot of cutters going to the basket. I just think the Lakers are going to have to be ready for everything the Nuggets are going to be throwing at them. And I think they will be, because the Lakers, they have been really surprising me these playoffs. Lonnie Walker has came in. He's making contributions. I mean, just him alone, I think he's going to have to be one of the best players in this series coming off the bench. But it's going to come down to Jokic and Anthony Davis. But I think Jokic and Anthony Davis are both going to average around 30 points per game this series, because Jokic has proven in these playoffs that you play the star big mans and he hasn't had a problem. In the first round, they played Karl-Anthony Towns, who was one of the best big men in the league, and Jokic just ran over him. Then Phoenix Suns, DeAndre Ayton. Honestly, DeAndre Ayton just looks like he doesn't even want to play basketball half the time. So that wasn't really even a matchup problem for Jokic. So he kind of just ran through that. But the things that Jokic is doing, he's not getting enough credit for it. I know he can barely jump over a curb, as Stephen A would say. And he's not the most athletic guy, but his IQ for the game is unprecedented. His passing is unreal. He's a fantastic offensive rebounder. So I think the Lakers are going to have a very difficult time having to deal with Jokic, because Anthony Davis is the only guy in the series that's going to be able to guard Nikola Jokic. Now, will the Lakers utilize Mo Bamba in this series, or even Tristan Thompson for that matter? Will they utilize one of those two guys in this series? It's whoever they use. I'm not sure about Tristan Thompson, but I think Mo Bamba can definitely make an impact on this series against Jokic, because he's got that long wingspan and he is a great shot blocker. So putting him on Jokic might be a smart idea, and then having Anthony Davis stretch out to the power forward spot. Maybe they go in for a lineup change, because Darvin Ham's been making lineup changes all postseason long. He kind of makes adjustments according to what's been going on in each game, which I do like. I do like the adjustments that he's been making. Darvin Ham has definitely been the second best head coach behind Eric Spoelstra in these playoffs. So it'll be very interesting to see who wins this series. But if you had to ask me, I just think, Jokic is going to be too much for this Lakers team to win this series for the Lakers. Even though LeBron, he's going to make it very interesting. This series is going to go 7 games. But I think the Nuggets are going to end up coming out on top in 7 games. That is just my personal opinion. I think they will be in the NBA Finals for the first time in franchise history. Jokic is just hungry for that ring, and I think he's finally going to get it. I think he's going to prove to the entire league that he should have been MVP over Joel Embiid. That is the reality of this entire situation. And in the finals, I think it's going to be Nuggets Heat in the NBA Finals. I think the Heat are going to beat the Boston Celtics in 7 games. Now, I know my predictions have been way off in the past. I know I said I was going to try to get away from that, but I'm sorry. I just have a very hard time not making a prediction here. But this is going to go ahead and do it for today's episode of the Take Podcast. I hope you guys enjoy these episodes. I really enjoy making these. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Comment down below what you guys think, who you guys think's winning the NBA championship. But I'm your host, Jackson Burleson, and this has been another episode of the Take Podcast. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Yeah. Talk to me, baby. Talk to me nice. I'm from another world, baby, yeah. Broadway paradise. They think I'm way too cold, cause I put my heart up on ice.